Hi, I'm Torte de Lini. In 7.36, Phantom Assassin saw a massive decline in popularity with the release of her new facet and the dismantling of her blur ability. Blur was a staple for Phantom Assassin both during her early game farming, to avoid detection both on the minimap and in taking incremental damage from jungle creeps, but also to allow her to take some risks in the lane, knowing that her blur would obfuscate her from the map until an opponent got near. While she kept her evasion, now part of her innate ability immaterial, her facets in 7.36 left something to be desired for a lot of players who always felt that in recent patches, Phantom Assassin was just not a good carry hero compared to the popular alternatives like Slark, Luna, or Faceless Void. For the most part of 7.36, players were opting for her Veiled One facet because it most resembled that of how she used to be played, but upgraded. Blur being no longer dispellable, and it reduces your ability and item mana costs during and after Blur's effects run out. This essentially relieves PA from her mana problems early in the game when building towards Battle Fury, while relying on her spammable spells like Stifling Dagger and Phantom Strike to quickly maneuver and farm jungle camps. On the flip side, the Methodical facet was viewed as an outright downgrade because it was reliant on getting a number of hits in before you deal a coup de grace critical strike. So without Phantom Strike, you were typically attacking very slowly, both when farming and later in fights, unless you committed to attack speed, which honestly PA typically does not want to. However, in 7.36a, they did buff the Methodical facet in an important way. Your daggers now count as 2 attacks towards the coup de grace, and in 7.36b, they improved that coup de grace critical damage by a moderate amount as well, helping it distinguish it from the Veiled One facet. So now there's a lot of discussion about which facet is better. Most average players prefer the Veiled One. However, the stigma around Methodical is more linked to how it's misunderstood in terms of its benefits rather than the appeal of Veiled One facet. As we can see on Dota2ProTracker.com, pros prefer Methodical overall. Most of that stems from its consistency, when you're going to deal critical damage, for example, so you could be more precise about when to jump into a fight, but there's definitely more than meets the eye when it comes to this facet, so let's break it down. By the way, if you love my Dota 2 guides and love reverse psychology, please don't subscribe, or comment. Also, don't become a member on my YouTube channel for only $3, or subscribing to my Twitch channel where I can answer all your questions and show you how to play some of your favorite heroes. In essence, the Methodical facet demands a slight gameplay change for PA players. In comparison to the Veiled One facet, Methodical's blur is pretty bad, and that means you have to approach Phantom Assassin differently. Going from, being a one-shot killer on the backline to becoming more of a long-term fighter when she commits, but still starting with that squishy backline, is key and essential to approaching this new way of Phantom Assassin. Methodical makes that approach more consistent and within your control to achieve. That consistency comes with a trade-off, and that's in regard to losing the chance to sometimes hit 2 crits in a row. All that said, however, Methodical does increase your critical damage by 125% at every level, so by the time you are ready to fight with a Battle Fury and a Black King bar, you are dealing more damage when you crit at an earlier timing than if you played with the Veiled One facet and needing that extra time to farm your third item, Desolator. So your approach is how you should be playing Phantom Assassin, which may be not what everyone is doing. Most Phantom Assassin players are just throwing their body into a fight using Phantom Strike and praying to Ice Frog that coup de grace will occur. But since we now know the conditions to get a coup de grace critical strike, we adjust our approach. We poke around the fight with our low cooldown Stifling Dagger until we reach 5 hit stacks, and then jump in with a Phantom Strike on a squishy target like a Chen or a Pudge. Someone who has little escapes and low armor for us to do maximum damage in as few hits as possible, making teamfights now a 4v5 instead of a 5v5 situation. Alternatively, when teams are kind of stuck in a standstill, you can just keep throwing daggers knowing that the next one will be with a critical damage hit. Well, what about the early and mid game for Phantom Assassin with the Methodical facet? Well, good news, because Methodical actually hastens your farm significantly, both before getting your Battle Fury and even a bit after. You can expect to grab your Battle Fury by about 1 to 2 minutes earlier than if you went with the Veiled One facet, because 1, you are no longer relying on pseudo chance to critical strike neutral camps, but rather have a guarantee every 4 attacks, 2 of which being your dagger. So, with each jungle camp, you throw your dagger and attack the people once before you can crit them. Number 2, the Methodical facet only requires you to attack a target 3 times before the 4th one becomes coup de grace, as opposed to 5 hits on a hero for the coup de grace to proc, so obviously you're critting faster and earlier than before. And number 3, again, the Methodical facet increases your critical damage by 125% from 200 to 325% at level 1. So it takes fewer hits overall to wipe those jungle camps and move on to the next one, especially when using your Phantom Strike. About your overall item build, Phantom Assassin is built pretty much the same as before. Battle Fury to give you a lot of damage, mana and health regeneration to hasten your farm. Black King Bar, so when you do jump on an enemy with Phantom Strike, that your attack speed for a limited time isn't going to waste due to an enemy's disable. From then on, most people would opt for Desolator, but that's where the Methodical build differs. You can still go Desolator, but it's fallen out of favor, and most high-level players now opt for more defensive items like Sange and Yasha or Manta style. Items that can increase your attack speed, help you give some defensiveness outside of your Black King Bar instead of leaning on more damage from Desolator, since your output is more about having more coup de grâces occur rather than raising the damage you deal from each critical damage. Don't forget that these items also give attack speed and damage from the agility stat, since you are an agility hero, but also that the Methodical facet raises your critical strike damage, which we mentioned before. With the Desolator and the Veiled One, you would be treating PA as kind of this hopeful one-shot targets hero that can, hope to god a double crit occurs with the lowered armor effects from Desolator. However, with the Methodical facet, it's about fighting longer once you commit and having the items to give you a better well-roundedness in stats so you can stay in those fights longer for more attack stacks to build up and you can coup de grace more regularly. What's really great is that now your evasion is on your innate ability Immaterial. Your evasion really can't be stopped by Silver Edge, but rather only through items that deal true strike, like Bloodthorn and MKB. Very few items want to build MKB, whereas Bloodthorn, a common item for heroes like Broodmother, are already countered by your item build, Black King Bar and Manta style, or reduced in its duration with Sange and Yasha. Nothing else has changed. Items like Skull Basher, Abyssal Blade, and Satanic are still popular items for PA, as it keeps the hero in the fight and impairs targets so she can keep coup de gracing them more and more. As well as maybe an Ag Shard, Nullifier, and Ag Scepter, they're still on the board as choices if need be. Her skill build still maxes out Phantom Strike with Dagger and Blur last, since it doesn't really offer all that much for her. One last thing to note is that even though you rely on your Stifling Daggers to build up your hit count to time your coup de grace when you jump into a fight, you don't get the level 10 talent that lowers her cooldown on the Dagger. It feels like you should, since that would mean your crits come earlier, but attack speed is kinda king here with the Methodical facet, and the Phantom Strike talent gives you attack speed for a longer time during the moments that do matter, right when you're in the thick of a fight and need to slay your target. That said, if you do opt for the Dagger, it will slow the opponent for about the same duration as your cooldown, allowing you to continually throw daggers on an enemy and build up your attack stacks leading up to a crit from afar. So as for how you should play Phantom Assassin, she plays pretty similar to what you know before as an assassin, relying on her dagger to build up her attack count from afar before strategically jumping in to kill an easy backline frail target to then pull out and reposition. The Methodical facet makes this approach more manageable in terms of when it will come up and when you should be ready to go in. So in summary, when it comes to choosing Phantom Assassin's facets, it first comes down to preference and ultimately your playstyle. The Veiled One facet is essentially a blue pill for Phantom Assassin players where everything goes back to normal with some added bonuses and you play her exactly as you did before with all her shortcomings. The Methodical facet is the red pill and you come to a painful realization that how you've been playing Phantom Assassin before with all the risks and addiction to chance is now no longer feasible and you must play exactly as the facet's name suggests, methodically. As the meta becomes more about carry heroes that can join mid-game teamfights and stay in them for as long as possible, PA must then choose that style if she wants to see any playtime. The Methodical facet lowers the items you need to just 2, Battle Fury and Black King Bar, and the facet compensates for having lesser items by increasing her coup de grace critical damage by 125% at every level, and thus only increases your farming efficiency so you come online by 20 minutes rather than 22 to 24 minutes on average. In short, the appeal of Veiled One is sticking with the status quo with some mana cost reduction benefits. The Methodical one has you stop and think about how you approach teamfights and more importantly how to stay in them. It's not for the average player who just chucks their body and hopes for the best, but rather to strategically map out how PA will engage in attacks before she commits. Dota may feel like a fast game with precision timing, but sometimes the hero that knows when and where they'll be best utilized and to wait is the one that'll come out on top. Let me know in the comments how you've been playing PA and don't forget to like and subscribe.